Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Yura, and what better way to follow up Evil Swarm than the sister deck that we talked about yesterday in the games in Constellars. Constellars are troubled, I guess is the word that I would use for it. This is a very strange deck. While the L-Swarms have a whole slew of infestation spell traps that Ophion can access, Constellars are a lot more monster focused. And in theory, that's not a terrible thing. There are plenty of really great monster-focused strategies in the format. Things like Mermail are incredibly monster-focused. Most of their engine is monsters, with only like really the 3 Abyss Sphere acting as your main spell traps that you're going to get through the main engine. Constellars have spell traps. They're not quite good, but they exist. They're not worth playing though, because they're bad. But let me talk about what I mean by this deck being troubled. Confused is another word that I could really use for it. Constellars, I'll start with the Xyz monsters, are a deck that focuses on making 5s, 6s, 4s, and 3s. I don't know why I said it in that order of Xyz monsters. And the Xyz monsters are not bad. Ptolemy M7 is phenomenal. Pleiades is one of the strongest interaction monster effects in the format. Prazepi to like make your guys harder to run over by battle. And Pleiades changes everything to defense position, which is fine. The problem with Constellars is that because they are trying to do so many of these things at the same time, it leaves your main deck monsters, of which there are a lot, much like Evil Swarm. There are plenty of these cards. There's 2 level 6s, 2 level 5s, a handful of level 4s, a handful of level 3s, a level 2 and a level 1, but that doesn't really make for a good cohesive game plan. Mermails have a spattering of levels as well, but for the most part, they're like 3s and 4s and 7s, and they all have their own little niches within that deck. The Constellars are a series of monsters that love repeating the exact same effects on differently leveled monsters, which is really bad. It means that although we have a lot of variety in names, we have not a lot of variety in actual effects. Most of these guys just read, get a Constellar out of graveyard, special summon a Constellar from your hand, special summon a Constellar from your hand, add a Constellar from your deck to your hand. Like, Chaos is, in my opinion, the most interesting one, because not only is it searchable through Tenki being a Beast Warrior, but it also has a level modulation effect that actually allows us to go into the other Xyz monsters without needing to go into like the 5 pool or the 6 pool or the 3s, which I think is pretty solid. Another thing that Constellars tend to do is that like they have these monsters that give themselves double normal summons. Things like Pollux are the pretty direct sister card to Evil Swarm's Castor, and this deck does a lot of that. This deck has a lot of these very simple effects that are very basic extension, where Evil Swarm has a little bit more variety in its monster effects, focusing on removal, even if it's slow. Constellar, like I said, is a lot of the exact same effect over and over and over and over and over again, which is not good for building an interesting cohesive strategy that has a lot of variance in its game plan. So the thing that we're doing with this Constellar list is focusing on the 4-axis, because the 4-axis is, in my opinion, probably the most versatile. And that's not to say that like the level 4 Constellars actually have versatile effects on board, because that's not the case. The only one that is like even remotely different than the rest of the Constellars is Chaos, which we've already talked about. The rest is just like Pollux, who gives you an extra normal summon, and Algieti, who special summons a level 4 Constellar from your hand. The only non-level 4 that I am currently on from the Constellar pool is Siat, because it is a level modulation on its own. There is, in theory, a world where you could run like Leonis to try to play rank 3s. Same thing with Sheridan, because Sheridan is a search, which is kind of interesting. But Unfortunately, I think the rank 3 Constellar is probably the least impactful one. You could at least make an argument for Presepi because this guy, in theory, makes your guys like 1,000 attack stronger if he's on the board, which is pretty nice. And it makes Pleiades a 3,500 guy, which is like really large, and I like that a lot. But I don't think it's really worth playing a version of this deck that is focusing on the 3 axis, because not only is the general rank 3 pool weaker than the rank 4 pool, but it also means that you're not utilizing the best Constellar monster to go into the best Constellar Xyz monster, which is Pleiades. Because Chaos, how it works is twice per turn, you can target a Constellar monster on your field and then modulate its level by 1. This allows you to turn 2 4s into 2 5s, or 2 4s into 2 3s, or 2 3s into 2 4s. Like, you get it. But at that point, like, you can't go like Sheridan and also have a Chaos on board and then make a Pleiades, because you can only do this level modulation twice. So not really a great spot to be in running the 3s, and we don't want to run the 5s because that means we have to tribute summon them, and we're not doing that. You cannot make me do that. There is no world in which you can make me do that. Also, these cards have like weird type differences. They're not all warriors. Like Antares is a machine, a handful of them are warriors. Algieti is a spellcaster, Chaos is a beast warrior, and while I appreciate Chaos being a beast warrior, it's still a little strange. And then Siat is a fairy. So not even a lot of great like type cohesiveness here. This archetype is just, again, confused. There's a lot of things going on here. Most of them are not worth playing. It makes sense that this is the sister deck to Evil Swarm because it has a lot of the same problems with its monster lineup. The problem with Constellar over Evil Swarm is Evil Swarm has some really solid infestation spell traps like Pandemic that gives them a huge amount of protection that can make their archetypal rank 4s already that much better because they become immune to things like Dark Hole. Constellar does not get that. We don't get that here. Instead, we have Constellar Star Cradle, which is salvage for Constellars, but you can't conduct your battle phase that turn, which awesome, cool, that's what you love to see. Constellar Star Chart, which is a once per turn draw on a continuous spell whenever a Constellar monster is Xyz summoned. Cool, that's not great. And Constellar Belt, which is the activation of light monsters' effects, cannot be negated. Belt is in theory good. This is like your way of making your guys a little bit harder to get around, a la Infestation Pandemic. Here's the problem. This card's not searchable, 1. 2, this is all that it does, and it's not on a quick play spell. It's on a continuous spell that can be popped by MST whenever. So it's not chainable. It's always up, so your opponent knows what to play around. Like, I'm sorry. These cards, these spell trap cards are not good. There's only 4 of them, and Meteor is not a trap card that we want to play. This card is terrible. Don't put it in your deck. Anyway, with the card pool out of the way, I know I normally don't do this for deck profiles, but I feel like it is worth talking about in both the Evil Swarm and Constellar videos because they are the new decks in the format, and I am just unbelievably frustrated at how nothing most of these cards are. This deck could have been something so crazy, and instead we have the same effect on 8 different cards. What are we doing, Konami? I say this like they're watching. Regardless, I do think Constellar does have an interesting niche in the format, and a lot of that is actually centralized in the fact that Chaos is a beast warrior. Tenki is a phenomenal card, and Bear and Gorilla are both really, really phenomenal, just normal summons in the deck. While you do not have a great way of doing something additional on top of the Gorilla and the Bear, they are still phenomenal ways of finding you Chaos, because when Bear inflicts battle damage or when Gorilla wins in combat, you can get one of your fire formations to your field, either your Tenki or your one of Tensu, and that is another method of getting extension onto your board. Because if you saw the intro to Meadowlands video, you know that every single Constellar monster loses to Effect Veiler, even Pollux, which should not lose to Effect Veiler, but Meadowlands specific rulings say that it does, and I'm sad about it. These cards have a lot of trouble, and that's one of the main reasons why I even included the one Tensu in the first place. We kept running into issues while testing where, yeah, you could go get a Tenki, and then like the tanky would sit on field and make your guys slightly bigger, but I think it is much better to have access to a double summon that cannot be negated through monster effects, which is nice. Or rather, monster-based interaction. Things like Effect Veiler that negate monster effects. Because all of these lose to Effect Veiler. The Kaus loses to Effect Veiler, the Pollux loses to Effect Veiler, Algieti loses to Effect Veiler, and even to an extent, Siat loses to Effect Veiler, and the Fire Fist also loses to Effect Veiler. This entire deck loses to Effect Veiler. It is what it is. But we do get to play some interesting little text to help us make the Pleiades even outside of just the Constellar names that all lose to Effect Veiler. So we're going to start with the card by card. I say start with, we're 11 minutes into this as of the recording. So we're going to go into the card by card now and kind of go over what we're doing to try to supplement the generally mediocre effects of the Constellar main deck monsters. First up, we've got Solar Windjammer, a level 5 light machine monster that we can special summon when we have no monsters. This is better than Cyber Dragon, even if it does not win combat, because we can use it going first. And going first is where you want to be summoning this, because that helps you make your Pleiades, which is the best thing you can be doing turn 1. Other than that, this is a very, very simple effect. I will note, you do not want this card staying on board for more than a turn, because if it is on your field during your standby phase, it will level modulate itself up to level 6, and thus no longer able to be a material for your Pleiades. You could in theory use it for the Ptolemy M7. I'm not going to stop you from doing that, but just be aware that ideally, if you're summoning Solar Windjammer, you're also getting it off your board that turn. The actual Constellar names that we are on, as I've already mentioned, are Kaus, who has the twice per turn level modulation effect, the Pollux, who has the extra normal summon condition that can be negated by Effect Veiler for some reason, the Algieti, which special summons a level 4 Constellar from our hand, which is all of our Constellars except for Siat. We are actually going to talk about Siat now because I want to talk about it before we get into the rest of the generics. Siat is a very interesting card, and it was a card that I was actually not on for a really long time, but it can special summon itself if your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, a la Cyber Dragon. And once per turn, you can target a Constellar monster you control or in your graveyard, and this card's level becomes the current level of that monster. This card cannot be used as an Xyz material from an Xyz summon except for the Xyz summon of a Constellar. This is really interesting extension. Unfortunately, it does kind of conflict with the Solar Windjammer, but honestly, having 4 cards like this, I don't really mind, especially because one of them is a Constellar monster, which granted, we're not really searching. This is maybe another reason to run the Sheridan, because it is just a way of getting another Constellar name in rotation. But the Sheridan is like a 700 attack monster that does nothing, so not exactly ideal. But Siat can help you if you get interrupted and you still have access to your normal summon, a la your Tensu, or you have Siat plus instant fusion. You could make a Pleiades by copying a level 4 or 5 in your graveyard. Granted, we're not playing any of the Constellar level 5, so a lot of this is going to just be using it to make a rank 4, or if you have a Kaus in your field and you use Siat to copy the Kaus, you can then make a Pleiades that way. That said, I am not fully convinced that these are all of the Constellars that we should be running. I do think Leonis actually does have a little bit of merit if you are playing Sheridan. There is a small rank 3 package that you could maybe play in this deck just because Kaus can modulate itself down if need be, if you want to make a Zen mains. But I'm going to be honest, finding the space in the extra deck is actually getting a little difficult with this because there's just a lot of cards that you want to run in your general toolbox. Next up, though, for our monster count, we've got the 3 Fire Fist names. We're on Double Bear and 1 Gorilla. I think this is generally the better lineup. Bear removing monsters feels a little bit more important than Gorilla removing spell traps. And Bear's search effect is a little more consistent to get access to, because in an ideal scenario, you are using Pleiades to remove your opponent's monsters, so you don't have to do it by battle, and then Bear swinging in direct will get you access to your fire formation, which can then extend you from there. Gorilla only gets you a fire formation by winning combat, which again is not really the ideal for this deck, but it popping spell traps is pretty nice. And then our final monster that we're on in the main deck is the Honest. Because we're on a light deck, we might as well play the card that says we win combat no matter what. Next up, we're on 3 copies of Instant Fusion. I have actually slowly been working myself out of putting Instant Fusion into every deck. I do still think there are decks that absolutely benefit from it, and this is for sure one of them. One of the main reasons why I think is because we do actually have light level 5 targets, and some of them, like Ojama Knight, can inflict psychic damage, and I like that a lot. I like inflicting psychic damage on my opponents. I think it's very fun. The other target that we have is the Carbonella Warrior. We do have Pollux as a warrior. We're not currently on any of the warrior-specific Xyz monsters, although we probably should be. It's just a matter of trying to find space for them. Probably could take the Ardreas out of here and then slot in like Excalibur or Blade Armor Ninja, maybe even remove the Gaia Dragon, the Thunder Charger for those as well. There is a lot to be done with this extra deck. This is just what we're currently on, and honestly, I don't mind this current extra deck all that much. We're on the Meadowlands staples, of course, the Heavy, the Darkhold, the Reborn, the 1 Rhoda to search out our Pollux, the Warning, the Judgment, and then we're also on the 3 copies of MST alongside of our fire formations, 1 Tensu and 3 Tenki, because Tenki can search out our Kaos, which is our most important Constellar monster, and the Tensu also lets us double normal summon that Kaos, which is a way of getting around Effect Railer if your Pollux gets negated. Our trap lineup is still kind of in the works. Double Bottomless, Double Mirror Force, I feel like is pretty good, but these Fiendish Change could be a lot of things. They could even be the thing that I was currently considering is Safe Zone, because this is a way of protecting your Pleiades while your Pleiades can still act as interruption. And then on your turn, you can Pleiades bounce the Safe Zone back to your hand and then overlay a Tomali M7 over the Pleiades to get an additional body on board that is slightly bigger. And while it can't use its effect that turn, it does reset your safe zone, so you can utilize it on your opponent's turn for like either protection or some other means. I do think this card is really interesting here. I just haven't had a whole lot of time to specifically mess with it, but I think it could probably take up this Fiendish Chain slot or maybe something in the side like the Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. The rest of the extra deck, apart from the instant fusion targets, are, I want to say, kind of self-explanatory, but not really. Gaia Dragon, the Thunder Charger, exists to be a thing that we can overlay onto a spent Pleiades or a spent Tomali M7. Ptolemy M7 is something that we can use over a spent Pleiades. Ptolemy M7, if you're unfamiliar with it, can be Xyz summoned using a Constellar Xyz monster you control as material other than itself. This also lets us use the rank 4 as well. That's not terrible if you end up making this guy, but not during the turn you summon it this way. You can attach a material from this card and then target a monster on the field or in the graveyard and return that target to the hand. Kind of a beefed up version of the Pleiades bounce. However, this card can target monsters in the graveyard as well, instead of just cards from anywhere on a quick effect, which is what Pleiades does. Pleiades, we're going to cover now, is the most important extra deck monster in this deck. It is one of the strongest removal options that this deck has access to. It being a quick effect bounce is phenomenal. This card is really, really good, and keeping it on a field for more than one turn will more often than not put you in a very, very commanding position. We're also on the 1 Tiras Keeper of Genesis. This is another decent going first like rank 5 monster. It's not phenomenal, but it does have like some additional protections that Pleiades does not, and is decent into certain matchups. We're on an Ardreas as our rank 5 removal option of choice. We also could be on Volcasaurus, but Volcasaurus is trading burn damage for its ability to attack, and we do actually value the ability to put a little bit more pressure on board with the Ardreas pop and attack. Onto our rank 4s, we're on the 1 Prazepi, I don't really know how to pronounce this. This is 2 level 4 Constellar monsters. This is 2 level 4 Constellar monsters, which is the only Constellar Xyz monster that we are on that requires 2 level 4 Constellars. The Pleiades just requires 2 level 5 lights, which is why we're on the Solar Windjammer and the Instant Fusions. But Prazepi has to be made using double Constellars. And once returned during the damage tip of either player's turn, when a Constellar monster you control is attacking or being attacked, you can attach an Xyz material from this card, and then that monster gains 1,000 attack until the end phase. Notably, this does count itself, so if your opponent tries to out this guy before trying to run over a Pleiades, he can just attach from himself to make himself 34, which is not terrible. We're also on 1 copy of Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Tiger King. This is a really just phenomenal monster all around, and us being able to make use out of it through Kaos and a Fire Fist monster is pretty nice. If you do not have a way of getting your Pleiades online, this is a really solid backup plan, and it gets you access to another Tenki, which can then get you another Kaos for a following turn, where you can try and make a Pleiades then. Tiger King also has its full field non-beast warrior effect negate, which is pretty nice, and can send 3 fire formation spell traps you control to the graveyard to summon 2 level 4 or lower beast warrior monsters from your deck with the same attack. This notably can get you double cows, which is pretty nice for trading out a Tiger King for a Pleiades on a following turn if they will survive that turn. I do think that is pretty sick. We're on a Black Ship of Corn to beat Maelstrokes and Zen mains. We're on a Starleech Paladynamo because this is a light specific rank 4 that acts as both attack modulation and effect negation. Although it's pretty slow, it's not a quick effect, but it also replaces itself with a card if it is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to your graveyard, which is pretty sick. We're on the 1 Maestroke for protection, the 1 Abyss Dweller for graveyard decks, and the 1 Gaga Cowboy to help us beat over Ophion, which Maestroke also assists with. Onto the side deck, we're on Double Thunder King Ryo. It is a light level 4 that is really, really good. So you can make Paladynamo with it, or you could just use it on its own because this card is phenomenal. We're on 3 copies of Maxi as just like a general combo hater. 3 copies of Effect Veiler because the card's just generally pretty good in the neutral game. 1 Book of Moon as our kind of like way to fit out our final slot because this is a 14 card extra deck without it, and I'd feel like running a limit 1 card that is both good going first and second is pretty nice. We're on 3 copies of Di-Fi because this deck does not give a single hoot about its graveyard except for in a couple of cases with the extra deck, specifically like the Tiger King and the Paladynamo, but other than that, not really. Then we're on 3 copies of Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, which probably could be Debunk or Mind Crush instead. I'm actually going to replace it with Mind Crush. I'm going to be super for real. I think Mind Crush is a better card here. But that's really it. That's all we've got for the Constellars. So we're going to hop into some games and see how it plays. All right, pretty interesting matchup we've got here. We got Constellars into Heraldic Beast, which is a really interesting deck in the format. We're going to be talking about it a little bit later on. Not very good, I would say. Certainly rogue at most, but it's got some interesting little things that it can use and do. We have a pretty decent opening hand of MST Algieti, Gorilla, Fiendish Chain, and Pollux, so we can at the very least get a rank 4 online. Into our opponent's Double Leo, which is really not where you want to see this guy. That guy's supposed to stay in the deck. 1 Summoner Monk, a Twin-Headed Eagle, and an Instant Fusion. So let's see what we've got here. We're going to find a Tenki, which is literally the perfect draw. We're going to get ourselves a Chaos. Go Algieti. Algieti is going to summon out our Chaos. Chaos is going to level modulate both itself and the Algieti up to level 5. And then we can make ourselves a Pleiades before setting 2 and passing. Our opponent draws the 3rd Leo. You really hate to see it. We're going to Fiendish Chain this Summoner Monk, but unfortunately it's not going to matter too much because they have an Instant Fusion. For extension, they're going to go into Maestroke, which we are going to bounce to their deck. Thank you, Pleiades, for being so goated. We're going to draw into a Tensu. Tensu is decent for a later turn, but for right now, we're going to just use it to extra normal summon out this Gorilla, get in for a huge chunk of damage. And our opponent, who's got 3 Brooks in hand, is not looking too great. They draw into another Heraldic Beast, which doesn't do anything, and they're going to scoop it up. All right, pretty commanding game 1, but we have a significantly worse hand this time. Some decent trap cards for sure, but Rhoda is just a Pollux and nothing else. We also got MST and an Instant Fusion, but I honestly, this game is making me consider go to 2 Instant Fusions instead of 3, and you'll see what I mean by the end of it. Our opponent has a much better hand this time, proper extension, like actual solid generic, so we're going to see what going first gets them here. They're going to find a Summoner Monk off the top. They're going to go Aberconway, and they're going to summon out this Kage before making a Lavalval Chain. They're going to put the Aberconway in the graveyard and dump this Leo. Leo is going to mandatory search out another Aberconway before setting this Bottomless Trap Hole and passing. We're going to find an Algieti off the top. That's actually not terrible. It turns this Rhoda into something. We're going to go Pollux. Pollux is going to extra normal summon out this Algieti. We're going to make a Paladynamo and swing over this Lavalval Chain. We make Paladynamo here because it can replace itself if it is inevitably removed. They're going to go Darkhold, which, you know, does remove it. We're going to trigger that Paladynamo to draw into an Instant Fusion. That's 2. Count them 2. They're going to normal summon out that Aberconway and set the warning and then swing it for 18. And we're going to draw into a dead Tensu. Not really great. They're going to draw into a Kage, trigger it by normal summoning up this Twin-Headed Eagle, and make a Lightning Chidori, which we are going to warning. We're getting a little low on life points, though. They're going to go Aberconway to add back this Leo, and then we're going to draw into a Veiler, another dead card. There's a second Leo in their hand. They're going to go normal summon of the Leo and swing in for 3,100. Pretty significant at this point in time. They're going to go Lavalval Chain to try to do something, but we're going to negate that with Veiler. They're going to trigger the Leo, which is going to get them a search anyway, and they're going to get the Aberconway. We're going to find the 3rd third copy of Instant Fusion. Can I get 3? They're going to go summon a monk, pitch this Foolish Burial for a Leo, and then make a Cowboy, which is then going to walk their Lavalval Chain into our Mirror Force, but they can still burn us for 8, turning off all 3 copies of Instant Fusion. Just really interesting gameplay we've got going on here. We're going to normal summon out this Tensu. Normal summon the Gorilla using the Tensu, which is going to get eaten by the Warning, and then as soon as it passes to our opponent, they're just going to Cowboy us, so we scoop it up. All right, this is where the criminal activity starts, I will not lie. We've got double Di-Fi, 1 Tensu, and a Solar Windjammer alongside a Solemn Judgment into our opponent's Lightning Vortex, Advanced Heraldry Art, Photon Thrasher, Aberconway, and Leo. And we are going first. We find a Tanky, which is the perfect find here. We're going to get a Kaus, go Solar Windjammer, and Kaus. Kaus is going to modulate itself up, and then make a Pleiades before we activate Di-Fi. We're going to set this Judgment and pass to our opponent, who is going to go the Photon Thrasher and then try to activate this Lightning Vortex, clearing our Pleiades by banishing the Aberconway with the discard of the Lightning Vortex effect. That is going to get negated by our Solemn Johnson, though. They're going to normal summon out this Heraldic Beast Leo, and we're going to keep them off of a rank 4 by bouncing it to hand. We find an Instant Fusion, which doesn't really do anything for us. We're going to walk over the Thrasher, and they no longer have a clean way of getting over a 2500 monster that can just bounce their normal summon. We find a Mirror Force return, and we're going to set that. Well, actually, I'm not even going to set that because it doesn't really matter. They're going to find a Heraldry Reborn, 3 Reborn spells, and no graveyard is not where you want to be. We're going to find a Pollux, go Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion is going to get ourselves a Carbonella Warrior. This is where I would love to have a Blade Armor Ninja, but we don't really, have one in the extra deck. We're going to get this Mirror Force now, and 4 Reborn spells and nothing engrave. It's not the way you want to go out. So Constellar is a cool deck, I will say. I think that last game was a little bit cringe, but it is what it is. But this deck has some really cool tools. I think you could even maybe play more Fire Fist names in here just to play the neutral game a little bit better, because these are really phenomenal cards. And Tanky is getting you additional advantage by finding you the best Constellar name in the deck. So I think there is definitely room for a little bit more Fire Fist in this deck. I don't really know what that build would look like. I would for sure want to cut something from this extra deck for at least a Blade Armor Ninja, likely also a Excalibur as well, just because they are phenomenal cards and we do have pretty clean ways of making them. But that said, this is not a terrible deck. I do think I might want to cut down on Instant Fusion just because there's a lot of the decks in this format that do benefit off of 3 Instant Fusion. I will not I will say that for a fact that there are definitely decks in this format that really always want 3 Infu, but I don't know if Constellar is that deck. I think 2 is fine if you want to go up on Fire Fist names. I think that is a pretty solid swap out, but I'm not really sure yet. For right now, I'm pretty content with where this list is at, and I do think it brings a little bit of an interesting flavor to the table. I think these cards, while kind of boring, do facilitate some really interesting extra deck monsters, and Pleiades is just a really fun boss to field. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap things up for today. Please do make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are really cruising along in the month of Meadowlands, and I'm really excited for some of the other stuff that we've got cooking up. So if you're not already subbed, I would very much appreciate it. I know I should probably be doing this show at the beginning of the video where there are more people here, but I don't know. I'm not very good at this. It's fine. It's whatever. Regardless, thank you all so much for sticking around and supporting the month of Meadowlands, and I can't wait to show off more stuff. See you in the next video. Bye-bye!